do you think this is?
I think that it's a slave bracelet. I would like to think that my relatives helped to free the slaves, and that was one of the ones that they freed, or maybe they found. I think that this is the name of the slave holder and then the name of the slave underneath it.
Us. It's a dog collar.
It's a crazy world, crazy world. Somebody's gotta have to save you. It's a crazy world. It's a crazy world. Somebody's gotta have to save you.
According to the paperwork right in front of me, it's December 12th, 2024. I'm Dave Rubin. This is the Rubin Report. We are on the internet via Rumble, YouTube, and Locals. Share, subscribe, tap that notification bell, post-game show, RubinReport.Locals.com. And although we will be catching up on a couple stories that we did not get to earlier in the week, we will also be doing a RubinReport.Locals.com community Q&A. And if you'd like to get a question in on the fly, Adi, is your computer working? Yes. Is it connected to the internet? Yes. Will you respond and add questions as they come in? Yes. Yes. Okay. I hire yes men around here. I will answer some of your questions, and yeah, we're going to just catch up on a lot of the craziness. You know what? Let's just jump right in, because this first thing is just so freaking great. Joe Biden was the president. I guess you could say he still is the president to some extent, or at least he's at the desk or whatever. He's obviously not in charge. He hasn't been in charge this entire time. His wife is a doctor. She should have put him in a home a long time ago, but she's out there now and she's enjoying this last little bit of fame, right? And well, here she is giving a little speech yesterday at the White House about the season. It's the season of joy, and well, just take a look at what happens here.
So I hope that you all feel that sense of, peace and light, and that just for a moment when you leave here today that you feel, a sense of joy. Because I think we all need we all need to feel joy now during this time of the season, during this time. So anyway, okay, now I'll start. You're all reading into that.
No, lady, we're not reading into it. The reason you said joy so many times was directly because you're sticking it to Kamala, who, again, has just completely disappeared in the last month. This woman was supposed to lead the globe. She was going to be the leader of the world. Now she's completely disappeared. She's tired and she needed a little time off. Meanwhile, Donald Trump is just out there relentlessly, nonstop all the time. But just that right there. Right, while offering season's greetings, that she manages to dig into Kamala one more time. And I'm telling you guys, I think it is quite possible that she and Joe Biden actually voted for Donald Trump. My friend Michael Knowles over at the Daily Wire had a good take on this. He wrote, "Hell hath no fury like the wife of a husband scorned." Jill Biden is quickly becoming one of my favorite figures in American public life. And check out this. This is also from a couple of days ago. We weren't able to get to this. This is Jill Biden and Donald Trump speaking at Notre Dame a couple of days ago. And look, you can just see it's good body language. These aren't people who are angry at each other. She doesn't think he's the devil or evil or anything else. It was all absolute theater. Joe did not make the trip, was probably in the hyperbaric chamber. And Jill is going, hey, I'm going to be around long past Joe, and let me see if I can, just sort of maintain relevance. But it is just so damn obvious, and this is exactly what the Democrats deserved. You deserved to lose. You deserved to have nobody good left in your party. It was a party of racists and grifters and hangers-on and just awful, awful people. And you are literally left with a disappearing president and his wife who's sticking it to the person that cooed him in the first place. It's just great. But let's stick with the Democrats for a little bit, because Bill Clinton, who you could say is a rapist. I was going to say racist. I don't know about he's a racist. No, he's definitely not. I have no indication that he's racist, but there is evidence that he's a rapist. I mean, a bunch of people have accused him of raping them. He also stuck a cigar in an intern while on the phone with Trent Lott sitting at the White House desk, which you might argue actually could be rape, because what choice did she have in that matter? But anyway, he's a Democrat, so they love him over on The View. He was there yesterday, and take a look.
In the book, you write that after your wife Hillary's loss, when she lost to Donald Trump in 2016, you had outbursts of rage and you didn't sleep for years, 2 years. Me either. I still can't sleep.
So you should call Joy. She was awake too.
Call me up. So how are you sleeping now? What's going to happen now?
I'm sleeping better now because I did everything I could for the alternative.
That's true.
Yeah.
But I also think it's important for everybody to just take a deep breath and say, unlike in 2016, there was no outside influence like the FBI director interfering at the last moment in violation of 70 years of policy.
My God, is that not completely insane? Bill Clinton right there is basically saying that somehow Donald Trump was not elected legitimately in 2016. They ran with Russia nonsense, and now they're putting it on the doorstep of Jim Comey. We'll have more on that in just a second. But it's interesting that Bill Clinton says he did everything he could do to get the alternative, to get Kamala elected, because there's only one video that we played during the entire election cycle of Bill Clinton, because it was the only time he said anything relevant, right? I would have played, if Bill Clinton had been out there making a great case for her, or even making a bad case for her where we could have mocked it, I would have played you all those videos. There was only one that we played you of Bill Clinton. It was a few days before the election. And just tell me, was this Bill Clinton making the best possible case for Kamala?
You had a case in Georgia not very long ago, didn't you? They made an ad about a young woman who'd been killed by an immigrant. Yeah, well, if they'd all been properly vetted, that probably wouldn't have happened. But if they're all properly vetted, and that doesn't happen, and America is not having enough babies to keep our populations up, so we need immigrants that have been vetted to do work, there wouldn't be a problem.
So, Bill, I don't know if it's the gonorrhea, but you're a little confused as to what happened there. You're wearing a Harris Walls hat, making the argument that Donald Trump has been making and we've all been making. You're blaming the open border and the not proper vetting on the fact that people were killed in the United States by illegals. That was literally his only moment. So I don't know what case he was making. So anyway, but also just real quick on the rape thing. Look, I don't know what Bill Clinton did or didn't do, and he's never been convicted of rape. So I should put that out there. But Juanita Broderick and several other women have accused him of rape. And just try to imagine if the script was flipped here, right? So if say Donald Trump was accused of rape, which he has been, they would never sit down and Joy touches him and they love him and he's wonderful and everything else. So again, I'm not saying he's guilty or not guilty or anything else. I have no more insight than any of you do, but it's the double standard that I think people have now gotten. There's no point in dwelling on it anymore. We just have to acknowledge it and move on. Bill Clinton continued to talk about presidential pardoning and how that may affect Joe Biden and what happened with his wife, Hillary, who ran for president. Do you remember her?
Donald Trump will be returning to the White House, unburdened by the pressure of re-election, with sweeping immunity granted to him, I believe, by the Supreme Court, and an alleged enemies list we're hearing. Do you think it would be wise of President Biden to preemptively pardon any potential targets? What about your wife, Hillary Clinton? She apparently is on Kash Patel's list.
For what?
Yeah.
Well, they got a problem with her because first, she didn't do anything wrong.
Of course.
Second, she followed the rules exactly as they were written.
Didn't she bleach some email servers, computer servers, and some emails? Yeah, you guys should do your own research on that. That's number one. Number two, again, they're trying to make you afraid of something that they have been doing, right? It has been the Biden Department of Justice that has been going after political opponents, namely the guy who's about to become president again. It's the Biden Department of Justice who went after grandmothers for January 6th. So again, they accuse you of doing something that they are always doing. Hillary Clinton, by the way, she is not going to end up in jail. Whether you think she bleached bleach blit the server, what do they call it? Bleach bit? Whatever they call it, whatever the hell they did with the bleach and the server, or whatever you think she did that was illegal or nefarious or anything else, they're not going to put her away. They're just not going to. And by the way, I don't think that would be a good idea. I actually think it's a problem when you start going after political opponents, because then no one good will ever want to be president, because you know you will end up in jail. It's called bleach bit, right? Yeah, bleach bit. I don't know, something. She dumped some bleach on his computer. You can't do that if you're Secretary of State. Anyway, it continued over at The View, and here's Anna Navarro. And she's very concerned that we might also go after Liz Cheney.
You know, a few things. First of all, thank God for Liz Cheney. Yeah. Yesterday, she put out a very strong statement condemning what Donald Trump had said. And I kind of felt like, you know, like that song. It's like our nation turns its lonely eyes to you, because she's not trekking to Mar-a-Lago to kiss the ring. She's not going into, you know, deep hiding and in silence. She's not changing her tune all of a sudden. She's sticking by her guns. She is a principled person with a backbone and courage. And if he goes after her, she's going to fight back. And it is going to be our job to protect her, to support her, to donate to a legal fund, to make sure that there are lawyers ready to defend her, because it costs a lot of money, because it is very stressful and very drainful, even if there is no crime. Yeah. Being investigated by the federal government is a big deal. And Donald Trump said, I'm not going to tell them to do it. Yeah, but he's telling them to do it through Meet the Press. Yeah.
That might be the biggest example of get a mirror lady ever. Yes, it is expensive when you're being unjustly accused of things and hunted down by the federal government and the Justice Department. Donald Trump might know a little something about that. No one's going after Liz Cheney. As a matter of fact, I am so confident that no one is going after Liz Cheney. Liz Cheney's not being accused of anything other than being just like a hack, sellout, irrelevant nobody. I don't think that's a crime. But you know what? I'm with you, Anna. It is expensive to get caught up in these legal affairs, and I will donate $5. I will be the first one in, $5 to the Liz Cheney Defense Fund if Donald Trump and his goons go after Liz Cheney. It's just crazy. They have everything backwards. I don't know what they're sniffing over there. A guy by the name of Rick Strassman, who's a psychiatrist, who actually did some of the first human studies with psychedelics, was on Joe Rogan's show just a couple days ago, and they got into this pardoning thing. He's not a legal expert in terms of pardoning, but they started talking about the notion of pardoning people who have not been accused of anything, or perhaps who haven't done anything wrong. Take a look at this.
I wonder what impact RFK Jr. is going to have on the delivery of health care now.
Well, he's going to have so much of an impact that they're talking about preemptively pardoning Fauci. Like, well, how do you pardon someone that didn't do a crime?
Preemptively. That's funny.
How are you pardoning someone where he's not only is he not convicted of a crime, he's not even tried, he's not accused, he's not indicted? Like, what do you...
I guess that's called blanket immunity.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, it's never been done before. There's never been preemptive pardons for people.
Yeah, that's an interesting
that
idea.
may have been committing crimes. Mm-hmm. It's weird.
Yeah.
Now, I want to make an interesting distinction here. I just said a moment ago that what I wouldn't want is the DOJ of an incoming president to go after the previous administration, right? You'd have to do something so over the top with so much evidence and it'd be so airtight. That would be the only way I think you can make that case, because if you did something that's on the margins, or it's arguable, or it's not quite black and white, or they're just going after you because they don't like you, see Donald Trump over the last 4 years, the problem is not only does that lead us to banana republic level stuff where we'll never get good people in office, but the system will just eventually eat itself. And we were getting very close to that position. Now, I would say that's different with civil servants, somebody like Anthony Fauci. The idea that Anthony Fauci would get blanket immunity or a preemptive pardon. Now, first off, the the pharmaceutical companies have blanket immunity, right? No one's allowed to sue Pfizer, no one's allowed to sue Moderna or anything else for their vaccine injuries. So that I think is a problem, and we should look at that. And I have no doubt that maybe that's a DOJ thing, or we'll see, maybe it's a Department of Justice thing. We'll see if they can start looking at that. Like if you take a medication, especially if the government forced you to do it and you become injured because of it with a lifelong injury, or it kills you or your sister, I'm pretty sure you should be allowed to sue those people, just like if you got on a bike that was made incorrectly and then the wheel fell off where you were riding the bike and you went into the traffic and it killed you, you'd be able to sue the bike company. So, okay, let's put that aside. But someone like Fauci, like, there should be investigations. One of the things that I've always said for years now about COVID is that unless we look at what the high hell happened, how did they decide that they were going to lock us in our homes and not let us go to work and make up all of this nonsense about masks? And all of the craziness as it pertained to forcing a vaccine through fast, which, by the way, that is on Trump. But then also he did not do mandates. But then the Biden administration came in and did mandates. And Fauci at the same time was telling people in emails that they can go on vacation and not wear masks. And he's going to the baseball game and not wearing that. All of those things. I don't know exactly what you would say the crime is there, but we should be allowed to look at that. People who literally wrecked and ruined and ended lives over the course of a series of years. That would be a little bit different than going after the previous administration. We'll have a bit more on some of the crazy ways that they are framing what Donald Trump potentially could do in just a second. But first, let me talk to you about TWC Maha. The deep state strikes back with a clear message to create nuclear war as Trump transitions into office. It's confirmed NATO fires missiles into Russian territory, forcing Putin to the brink of nuclear war. We haven't been this close to World War III since the Cuban Missile Crisis, and folks, Putin does not mess around. If global disaster strikes, are you prepared? 90% of medications come from overseas. You need to cover the bases for your family's medical needs and prepare for any type of medical catastrophe. And the wellness companies' emergency kits are your best defense against the unexpected. Packed with life-saving medications like ivermectin, Z-Pak, amoxicillin, and more, these kits combat bacterial infections, staph, bite wounds, UTIs, strep throat, and respiratory illnesses. Each kit includes their medical board-approved guidebook that walks you through how to treat different emergency scenarios. Ordering your prescription emergency kit is easy and fully digital. Answer a couple questions after checkout, and your kit is delivered to your front door. Don't wait until a disaster strikes. Act now by heading over to twc.health/Rubin and use code Rubin to save up to $60 off plus free shipping. Again, that's twc.health/Rubin and use code Rubin to save up to $60 off plus free shipping. Kits available only in the US of A. All right, so let's get away from the media craziness for a moment, the way they frame everything and they get everything backwards, and let's get into some granular stuff that's happening on the ground right now. There was actually huge news yesterday, Fox News reporting that FBI Director Chris Wray is resigning.
FBI Director Christopher Wray has announced that he is going to be ending his tenure as the FBI Director earlier than the end of his 10-year term, which, again, is not surprising, as Donald Trump has said he wants Kash Patel to head up the FBI in the new administration. David Spunt, live at the Justice Department with the breaking news for us. David?
Well, John, Christopher Wray, the FBI director, is making this announcement right now in an all-staff town hall with thousands of FBI employees across the country. He says now is his time to go. As you mentioned, he has a 10-year term. All FBI directors do. He was 7 years into his 10-year term, and realistically, he had two options. Wait to be fired by President-elect Donald Trump because Trump announced Kash Patel would take over, or bow out before. He has chosen to bow out before.
Okay, so this is interesting. So yes, they get a 10-year term, but the incoming president can get rid of them. It's not blanket immunity. You don't just get 10 years no matter what. And clearly, to put it mildly, Christopher Wray and Donald Trump do not like each other. We have a bit more from Chief Nerd over on the Twitter here, and this is just a quote from Donald Trump. I'm not going to read you the whole thing, but Trump said, "The resignation of Christopher Wray is a great day for America as it will end the weaponization of," I like this line, "of what has become known as the United States Department of Injustice." Look, and you can go on Twitter and you can read the entire thing for yourself. But look, we are going to have a very, very different incoming administration. We have had an administration that no one has really known who is in charge, that has let the government grow bigger and bigger and bigger, that has spent money in crazy ways, that has wrecked our international standing, like basically has done almost everything wrong. And we are about to have an incoming that has literally investigated its political opponents, all of those things. And it's just very clear we're shifting on all of that. And hopefully, I fully believe it will get better. If it doesn't, then we'll call it out as we see it, obviously. But it seems like things are going to get better here. Donald Trump a couple days ago was interviewed on NBC by Kristen Welker. She was one of the people who did one of the debates. She's not a particularly good journalist, but whatever. She sits there and asks questions. And they talked about Chris Wray and the Mar-a-Lago raid.
He invaded my home. I'm suing the country over it. He invaded Mar-a-Lago. I'm very unhappy with the things he's done. And crime is at an all-time high. Migrants are pouring into the country that are from prisons and from mental institutions, as we've discussed. I can't say I'm thrilled. I don't want to be Joe Biden and give you an answer and then do the exact opposite.
We're going to talk about
So
that,
I'm not going to do that. What I'm going to say is I certainly cannot be happy with him. You take a look at what's happened. And then when I was shot in the ear, he said, "Oh, maybe it was shrapnel." Where's the shrapnel coming from? Is it coming from heaven? I don't think so. So we need somebody to straighten. I have a lot of respect for the FBI, but the FBI's respect has gone way down over the last number of years.
Don't you have to fire him in order to make room for Kash Patel if he is, in fact, confirmed?
Well, I mean, it would sort of seem pretty obvious that if Kash gets in, he's going to be taking somebody's place, right? And somebody is the man that you're talking about.
Okay, so obviously that was 2 or 3 days ago before he stepped down, so before Christopher Wray stepped down. But there's Donald Trump again. He's just kind of being honest. He's like, this guy has belittled the fact that I was almost assassinated. He has been part of all of the bad things that are going on here, and I have every right to bring in anyone I want to run any department. So Christopher Wray clearly saw, I don't think he was planning on sticking around anyway. I don't know that he was, going to resign today or yesterday, but I think he basically saw that and was like, okay, I better get out now. There's no point in staying here. Now I want to show you this interesting clip from the televised mental institution known as MSNBC, because Joe Scarborough, you get it. He's paid to lie. He's nonsensical. He gets everything wrong. Fine. But in the earlier clip we showed you of The View, Bill Clinton implied that James Comey back in 2016 cost Hillary Clinton the election. And here is Joe Scarborough yesterday repeating the same exact thing.
We know exactly what he did. The FBI screws up on both sides. They're politicized on both sides. You can look at James Comey and look at the mistakes that he made. Ask the Clintons today about what he did and how he elected Donald Trump. You look at what happened afterwards. This Steele dossier, which we said from the very beginning was nonsense. They're doing the Steele dossier. The Carter Page FISA apps. They screw up. They're human beings. But there are people who like Republicans in the FBI and who like Democrats in the FBI. And Trump world running around saying what they're saying. It's just absolutely ridiculous, Willie, because they have short-term or long-term memory loss. They don't know what it is now. It was the FBI. It was James Comey who gave Donald Trump basically a life raft and a paddle to shore and win the election 10 days before. It was over until James Comey did what he did.
There is so much nonsense there. The reason I'm showing you this is I don't think we have to go back in the past and now start rehashing the 2016 election. Except, dude, the Steele dossier, you're right, it was nonsense, but it has far more to do with the Hillary Clinton campaign than anything else. Just real quick, the Steele dossier was a controversial report compiled in 2016 by Christopher Steele, a former British intelligence officer during the presidential election. It was commissioned as Oppo research, first by a conservative publication and later funded by the Democratic National Committee and Hillary Clinton's campaign after Donald Trump secured the Republican nomination. So Hillary Clinton funded the Steele dossier, which you're right, Joe, was nonsense, but it accused Donald Trump of all of these things, including being peed on by Russian prostitutes and being involved in Russia collusion and all of these things that then you guys literally impeached him over. So again, Joe, it's like, I don't know how you could be so bad at your job and still have it. And if you think for just a moment that James Comey was the guy that helped Donald Trump win the 2016 election. Well, here he is in 2019, and just take a look. Do you think this guy is a fan of Donald Trump?
aspects about the tapes.
Yeah.
George Stephanopoulos interviewed you a year ago when your first book came out, and I just want to play something you said about those tapes.
Okay.
Did you believe his denial?
Honestly, never thought these words would come out of my mouth, but I don't know whether the current president of the United States was with prostitutes peeing on each other in Moscow in 2013. It's possible, but I don't know.
So, I mean, the investigation's over now. Nothing in the Mueller report corroborated that salacious claim about the tapes and prostitutes. Do you regret making those comments, which some would see as sort of stoking the fires, or leaving it as an open question?
No, I was trying to give an honest answer, and my answer would be the same today.
But you could have just said, well, those were unverified.
Right, I thought that's what I was saying. That I don't know whether it's true or not. That's a crazy thing to have to say, because with any other leader, I would say that's preposterous. It couldn't possibly be true. There's a footnote in the Mueller report that actually makes potentially oblique reference to these tapes, where someone in Russia is alerting, I think it was Michael Cohen, in October, late October, we stopped the flow of the tapes. I don't know exactly what he means by that, but Mueller seems to connect it in some way to that allegation. Again, Mueller didn't say it wasn't the case. He didn't disprove it, but he also didn't establish that it was the case.
Right. And I think that person said that those tapes were false. Do you think the Russians have leverage over President Trump?
I don't know the answer to that.
You think it's possible?
Yes.
All right, so just to be clear here, that's from 2019, and now you've got Bill Clinton yesterday and Joe Scarborough yesterday saying that's the guy who helped Donald Trump become president. It was Hillary Clinton who funded the Steele dossier that claimed Donald Trump got peed on or peed on some Russian prostitutes. Now, first off, I would just say as a blanket statement, let he who has not peed on a Russian prostitute throw the first stone. I mean, we've all, but the broader point here is they will do everything except ever look at how corrupt they are, how bad their ideas are, how they are the bad guys in this story. And it's just excuse after excuse after excuse. And we, the American people, have just had about enough of it. And that's why not only will Donald Trump be president, but no one's listening to the media anymore. And the swamp is going to be drained. Let's just jump up to Canada for a moment, because Justin Trudeau, who's the first female prime minister of Canada, I just love her. Donald Trump's been getting into it with her over the last little bit, and he tweeted this out. It was a pleasure to have dinner the other night with Governor Justin Trudeau of the great state of Canada. I look forward to seeing the governor again so soon that we may continue our in-depth talks on tariffs and trade, the results of which will be spectacular for all Donald J. Trump. So as you guys know, Trudeau came down to Mar-a-Lago a couple days ago. Trump smacked him around, and immediately Trudeau was like, okay, we'll start rethinking some of our trade deals because the U.S. has been getting screwed. And it's like, we've been getting screwed by freaking Canada. Like, there's just no excuse, and he's going to deal with the border. So he's just needling him a little bit more. And you might say, hey, Donald Trump doesn't need to be doing these things and calling him governor anymore, or any of these 51st state or any of that. And there might be an argument around that. But I would say at this point, as it pertains to Justin Trudeau specifically, you can needle away. And here is Justin Trudeau yesterday, and he still thinks that the reason Donald Trump is president basically is because we're a bunch of misogynists.
No, it shouldn't be that way. It wasn't supposed to be that way. We were supposed to be on a steady, if difficult sometimes, march towards progress. And yet, just a few weeks ago, the United States voted for a second time to not elect its first woman president. Everywhere, women's rights and women's progress is under attack, overtly and subtly. But I want you to know that I am, and always will be, a proud feminist. You will always have an ally in me and in my government.
Oh, great. We're feminists. It's just so, as Jordan Peterson would say, it's such low resolution thinking that it's progress just to elect a woman. Nobody has a problem electing a woman if the woman is qualified. Imagine had the Democrats put out a qualified woman. I don't even, the problem is the ideas are so thin on the Democrat side. At this point, it would be tough. But obviously, could there be a competent woman who considers herself a Democrat, who had a great track record in the business world, building teams, who had a vision for the country, all of these things? Here, you know what? You could even do it this way. Hillary Clinton, whether you hate her, whether you like her, did she have a track record that was qualified to be president of the United States, in that she was first lady, she was a two-term senator from New York, she was Secretary of State? Now, you might not like any of the things she did, but I think you can objectively say that Hillary Clinton, by her resume, was qualified to be president of the United States, right? Again, you don't have to like her or anything else. But Kamala Harris, although she was vice president, there was no qualifications there. And not only was there no qualifications there, they only put her there because of her skin color and her genitals. So the idea that this has anything to do with misogyny or something like that, it's just so damn thin, it's so vapid. And of course, it's coming out of Justin Trudeau, who is the thinnest, vapidest person possibly on the face of the earth, with the exception of Gavin Newsom. Now, interestingly, Justin Trudeau, it's like, dude, how about you look at your own house right now instead of worrying about us, because you have turned your country into a jihadist stronghold. You have let tons and tons of people in who are now rampaging through the streets and waving Hezbollah flags and Hamas flags and much more. And you're also planning these mega tents to house refugees. So check this out. This is such an interesting, this sort of sums up Canada perfectly. So this is in Ottawa, where they're going to build one of these mega tents to house refugees. And the average Canadian, and Canadians, they're just soft. They like poutine and simple comedies. They don't like fighting with everybody. So they're at this meeting, right, to discuss whether they're going to do this housing of this giant tent to house these refugees. And here's a man, he's Chinese by birth, but he's a Canadian citizen, as we understand it. And here he is screaming at everybody, basically like, you effing idiots, we don't want these people here. How about we have a government that's for us, the Canadians? And it takes a Chinese immigrant to Canada to wake up some of the, nominal Canadians. Watch this.
There's a gentleman that is just taking the stage. He's wearing a shirt that says "No tent in Ottawa," I believe. There is security. He's now approaching the counselor.
No country in Ottawa!
I love that video, because it's like, here's this guy, I know nothing else about him, but from what I understand, he is a legal immigrant to Canada. So he did it the right way, right? It's illegal, a little hard to understand him, right? But they're the average Canadians, and they're just sitting there, and there's this hearing, and they're going to bring in more people, and we're going to tent them, and we're going to house them, and all of these things. And it's like they're just sitting there, and it's just going to happen to them, because that's largely what's happened to the Canadians in the tenure of Justin Trudeau. A series of bad things, just ask the truckers, has happened to them. And here's this guy who's a seemingly new immigrant to the country, firing them up. And then finally, they all start chanting. It's like, you guys better get a backbone like a ramrod, as Joe Biden would say, to save your country, because you have probably at least 10 more months of Justin Trudeau. Let's jump over to another part of the world, a little to the south of us, where things are going incredibly well. You guys know Javier Milei, the president of Argentina. He has completely, in basically a year, transformed Argentina from a place where the economy was crashing, where they had massive government overreach and inflation, and their money was being devalued and all of these things. Well, they've ended the deficit for the first time in 23 years. The guy has just done it right, and this could be coming to America.
The deficit was the root of all our problems, because without a deficit, there's no debt, no money printing, and no inflation. Today, we have a sustained fiscal surplus free of default for the first time in the last 123 years. This was thanks to being the largest adjustment in the history of humanity and applying a tourniquet to money printing until it reached zero. Exactly a year ago, a fiscal degenerate that I won't name had just printed 13 points of GDP in a year to win an election, without caring about the inflation it would generate. Today, monetary immunization is a thing of the past.
All right, little side note, I should mention that that's our AI translation now, which is just so cool that you can do that sort of thing. But basically, what did he do? Afuera, afuera, afuera. He cut government spending. He got rid of lesbian studies to figure out if Argentinian lesbians like to go down on Chinese immigrants. Like, he got rid of all of the stuff. That should be funded, but privately, obviously. That's what you can do, and you can do it quickly. And that's why I'm so bullish on the future of America, the near future of America. Because if you go in and you just crack the stuff, you just say, sorry, you guys have been working here for 30 years. Not only have you done nothing, but we've paid you to do nothing. You cannot be here anymore. You know, we had Rand Paul on the show a couple of days ago. He joined us in the middle of the show, and I asked him, well, what would you say to somebody who might feel bad for the civil servant who's going to lose his job? And he said, well, I feel bad for the person whose wages are being garnished to pay for this person to do nothing. And when enough of us get that idea lodged in our brain, and we realize we don't need these agencies, we don't need these middle management people, that these people who are the regulators, who are watching us all the time and investigating us, when we just get them out of our way, we are going to do amazing things. Oh, and a guy who's trying to send us to Mars and make life interplanetary, he happens to be good friends with the president right now, so maybe some really cool things that we can't even believe are on the horizon are right there. Now, the Democrats, of course, will have major problems going forward, because the Republicans have become the wide tent party, that because it's not just a conservative party anymore, it's a sane liberal party too, right? Donald Trump is no traditional conservative, and look what's happened with Tulsi and RFK, and you guys get all that. So there's a pro-America party and then a bananas, psycho, quasi-jihadist communist party. Nancy Pelosi's learning a little something about that yesterday. She went to the 92nd Street Y in New York City, and the Hamas people were just not happy with her.
Issues.
Yep.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. Okay. So you
Don't worry about that. I'm from San Francisco. I'm used to this.
I'll wait a second to continue.
Let us bow our heads for the hostages and be prayerful about the hostages, which they never mention.
Is she even human the way she says that? I think, let us bow our heads for the hostages. Like, is she an animatronic, an alcoholic animatronic, whatever? Congratulations, lady. I also love how she's like, oh, don't worry, I'm from San Francisco. I'm surrounded by crazy fucking lunatics all the time. Like, it's so insane, but you guys deserve it. But don't worry, Nancy, even though you're going to run and be in power forever because of the children, you have about 300 mil in the bank, and you somehow trade above the market more than almost anyone in the entire country. So you're going to be okay. And the children are the ones I'm freaking out about because they don't get that cash. So look, this is what the Democrats have. Now, what's happening, interestingly, is that a few people on the Democrat side aren't completely broken. They're mostly broken, but not completely broken. There's a man who goes on CNN all the time, and he's always crying. His name is Van Jones. But he speaks, he cries, and then he speaks softly, so people think he's sort of sane. Even though if you were crying every day on television, someone might say, you know, maybe you need to talk to somebody. But here he is with, I think, a somewhat fair estimation of the problems that the Democrat Party has.
We're pushing people out of this party, and the last thing I'll say is, I hate all these people, the anti-woke, the anti-this, the anti-that, but you got to look in the mirror at a certain point. We've had 5 movements in a row in our party that rely on dehumanizing binaries, where you're putting down some people to lift somebody else up. I love all our movements, but there's a moral flaw when every movement's got to put somebody down. Black Lives Matter, all white people are racist. That is not going to work.
Okay.
No, hold on a second. That is in fact a part of the ideology that subconsciously there's unconscious bias, and the way that lands though for people is you're calling them names. There's got to be a better way to say it. You walk through all of our movements. You look at Bernie. I love Bernie. All billionaires are evil. Everybody 99% is a victim. Oprah Winfrey's a billionaire. She's not evil. You look at the climate movement. All traditional energy is evil, including poor, sick coal miners. Environmentalists can throw ketchup on the Mona Lisa and their heroes. That doesn't work. Look at Me Too. Look at now, if you're Jewish, you're a colonizer. If you're if you're for the Palestinians, you can do whatever you want to. These things are landing very poorly because it's not Dr. King. It's not Nelson Mandela. It's not Ella Jo Baker. It's not Van Hamer. Progressives are at our best when we're saying we want dignity for everybody. We want to free the jailed and the jailers. We want to free the people who have been oppressors and the people who have been oppressed. We want to free everybody. When you stand for everyone's dignity, everybody's humanity, the whole world stands with you.
Man, get a mirror. Why didn't you say any of this during the election? You're largely right about a lot of that stuff. You really are largely right about a lot of that stuff. But it's the stuff that we have all been saying for years. So did you just, because of the results of the election, did something switch in your brain and you suddenly understand that identity politics is bad and grouping people together based on immutable characteristics is actually radically anti-human and probably the worst way to go about building a coalition in a free society? Like, are you just now coming around to this? That calling all the billionaires bad and talking about traditional ways of getting energy, which is the cheapest and most effective way of helping poor people get energy and being able to take care of themselves. Like, you're just coming around on all of this. So I'm sorry, with the crocodile tears and the post-mortem from the people that, you could have said that a week before. And by the way, when he's talking about good guy billionaires, he's like, it's Oprah. And it's like, no, she's not on my list of good guy billionaires. I should note, wow, this is like my third correction in a week, mid-show. I said that it was the first time in 23 years that Argentina was cutting the deficit. It's the first time in 123 years. That is a minor difference right there. All right, guys, we're going to get to the Rubin Report, .locals.com community Q&A in just a second. But first, let me talk to you about Rumble Premium. When Rumble first started in 2013, they built the platform for the small creator. They didn't censor or have biases. They were fair and treated all creators equally. No one thought platforms would censor political conversation or censor opinions around COVID, but they did. Facebook admitted they fell to pressure from the Biden and Harris administration. Of course, Rumble did not. They held the line. They're attacked daily for giving us a voice to talk to you. They're attacked in corporate media. They're attacked by governments like France. They're attacked by brand advertisers who refuse to work with them. Corporate America is fighting to remove free speech while Rumble is fighting to keep it. Rumble won't survive with brand advertisers alone. They don't get much of it. So watching our show is the number one way we can ask for support from you. But if you really believe in this fight and you have the means, one major way you can help Rumble survive is by joining Rumble Premium. Join the community that believes in the First Amendment and believes in our human right to free speech. Rumble is offering $10 off with promo code Rubin when you purchase an annual subscription. Go to rumble.com/premium/Rubin and use code Rubin. Like I said, if you have the means and believe in the cause, now is the time to join Rumble Premium. If you don't have the means, we're just happy if you watch us right here on Rumble. All right, Locals Community Q&A, here we go. Elizabeth says, do you and David have all your Christmas and Hanukkah shopping done for the boys? I'm going to bust out something that they will be getting in a couple of days. So this is a Transformer. This is a, what do they call this? A reaction figure. So I wanted to get the kids into Transformers. Yes, Michael Bay wrecked the Transformers. I like the old 80s Transformers. Okay, fine. But obviously they're only 2 years old, so I couldn't get them something that's too complex to transform or with too many small parts or that they're going to get their fingers stuck in when they're transforming. So this company came out with these, it's just figurines. They're just basic figurines. They don't transform. This is Shockwave. Now, one of the great things about being a parent is you can get your kids into things that you're into. So it's like you can get me, I love, I don't care what Star Wars, I've kind of lost it, but like old school Transformers stuff, or I talk to them about, we play basketball or whatever. Anyway, so I've gotten them a bunch of these and they know who Optimus Prime is and Starscream and Bumblebee and all of these things. And they had Shockwave. We had gotten them Shockwave. This is Shockwave right here. As you guys know, he was the Decepticon who remained on Cybertron while the other Decepticons went to Earth to mine it for Energon, and then they were going to bring it back and turn, the golden age of Cybertron. But I don't have to get into all of that. They lost Shockwave a couple weeks ago. We think he's somewhere in the yard buried. That's what Justin keeps telling me, but we can't find him. So they will be getting a new Shockwave. And we're also, there is a Unicron inside the house. The Unicron obviously was the planet who ate the other planets, and then he moved on to other planets. But yes, and the thing is, we don't want a lot of toys. My mom actually was texting us yesterday, like, what do the kids want? And it's like, we don't want a lot. First off, what I always tell everybody is, I don't want electronic toys. I don't like flashing lights. I don't like beeping things. We like wooden toys. We like blocks, things that they can create with. We like coloring and chalk. Luke loves chalk. The outside of my house, I basically look like I'm living in, well, at least a portion of my house looks like a homeless shelter because it's just like scribbled lunacy everywhere. He's definitely going to be into graffiti. I just can't deal with beeps and dings and sounds that you press on things. Dinosaurs are good. We're into trucks now. Oh, but there is something funny about this. What does it say here? Right here it says, this is an adult collectible, not a toy. Not a toy. Yet I'm playing with these things every night after the kids go to sleep. So it really, like, who are you to tell me what a toy is? Like, if this isn't a toy, what's a toy? Its arms move, its legs move. Eurasian says, what if the United Healthcare CEO happened to be a black or transgender woman? Wouldn't the left be calling for the return of drawing and quartering hanging for the handsome unibrow Luigi? Yeah, the whole thing, it just reeked of every inconsistency that the left has. They're really, I mean, we covered this obviously yesterday, this situation, but the amount of celebration on the left, or excuse, or but, where it's like, you can't shoot somebody, but. Elizabeth Warren had a horrible video on this. Maybe we'll get to it tomorrow when we do the panel show, where she was basically like, you can't go out there and execute people, but the healthcare system is broken and you could end up pushing people into things like that. It's like, once you go down that path, everyone has been wronged by somebody or perceived to be wronged by somebody. And once you say, yeah, it's okay to start, I don't know, punching Nazis, shooting healthcare executives in the head, executing people on the street, man, you are hanging on to civilized society by a very, very, very tenuous thread. So it is very dangerous. And the fact that he was a middle-aged, white, rich guy, it fed into their narrative. And, well, here we are. Crafty Cat says, in 10 years, I predict that AI will replace my job in healthcare. My options are go back to school, do something totally different, retire early, or just slowly be phased out. What do you think is the best option? Well, I would say largely that depends on how old you are and what your personal financial situation is, and if you have a spouse, what they do, and financial planning with your family's future and all of those things. But I think everyone needs to think about this more and more and more. We are on the horizon with AI and with robotics and drones and all of these things, that almost everything we know is going to be replaced. It's one of the absurdities that I always bring up when they're pushing for $15 or $20 or $25 minimum wage. Okay, tell McDonald's that the fry flipper has to be paid $25 an hour. Congratulations, you will just exacerbate, or you will shorten the timeline till they are just doing this all via robots. We know now, you go to the airport and you go to McDonald's or some of these other stores, and you basically don't have to talk to a person anymore. You press it on, just a giant iPad type thing. And then, yeah, usually there's one person who, pushes out your food to you, but every single thing there can be done automated. I'm sure you guys have seen these Amazon stores. What do they call them? These Amazon stores where there's no people anymore, right? You literally walk in, you scan your phone when you walk in, there's a million cameras, they're watching what you take, and you get charged on the way out. That eventually also will, I don't know right now, but eventually it will also be stocked by robots instead of humans. But it's not your UPS driver. Literally, I don't want to upset the guys that are sitting at the desk over here, but editors and directors and all these things. And by the way, hosts, because one day you will go into AI Grok or whatever it is, and you'll say, I want to hear what Dave Rubin thinks about this thing. And they will basically just pump it out to you. So we are on such an unbelievable horizon of change, and we're all going to have to think about, what does that mean? Maybe it actually all turns out to be brilliant and wonderful, because maybe partly also because of crypto, we're able to free ourselves from sort of some level of old school economics, and we have more time to do the things we want. Like, there's so many ways we're going to have to think about this. We should do, we're going to do a lot more on this in 25, just with futurists and some of the people that are trying to pave the way to this, because it's coming, and if you're not prepared, you're going to be left in the dust. Glenn says, what would you say? Don't worry, guys, you have a job with me always. I will, even to the point when there's nothing left for you to do, I'll pay you to just sit here and listen to me or watch me play with the Transformers. Glenn says, what would you say was your viewpoint that you were the furthest wrong about, that you don't believe now? Wow, my sort of craziest leftist viewpoint. God, it's so many lifetimes ago, it's hard to think. I was never completely insane on abortion, like 8-month abortion or any of that. And by the way, when I was a lefty, nobody was, right? So it's the left that has gone way more bananas on abortion than on the right. I would say as I've gotten older, as I've thought about it more, as I've done interviews about it more, I've become more and more pro-life for sure. In Don't Burn This Book, I wrote that, something like 12 to 15 weeks, I think, would make the most sense. I do have no problem kicking it back to the States. But I do suspect that as I get older, I'll probably even shorten that timeline. Like, I'm not where DeSantis is on the 6-week heartbeat bill situation, but it is a life. If life is to begin at any point, and we can get into, okay, so the sperm meets the egg, and then there's a clump of cells, and there's a blastocyst, and all these things, and eventually there's a heart at 6 weeks. We can all talk about where life begins, but like the genesis of it, obviously, is the sperm meeting the egg. But is that the same thing as having an abortion at 4 months? Obviously not. But I think that's probably, and I think also on some of the economic stuff, that's actually probably a better answer. I think I definitely shifted more libertarian on economics by talking to the right people, Thomas Sowell and many others, where I used to think, and this is what a lot of leftists think because they don't think things through. It's like, the state just needs more money to do more good for more people. Once you get to the point where most of us are, where I think most of the country is at this point, which is that the state is not particularly good at things, and the only way to stop that ever-sucking monster is to scale back the amount of resources it has, let it do less, and let you do more with what you earn. That's a much better way. So I'd say I shifted more on economics probably than anything else. Joe says, any thoughts on Kimberly Guilfoyle being nominated to be ambassador of Greece? So I guess that just happened a day or two ago. I know Kimberly quite well. She's really, really lovely person. And I think she'll do a fine job. I think she'll be a fine voice for the Trump administration. Obviously, Greece isn't the most complex country to be an ambassador for. And, basically when you're an ambassador, you host a lot of dinners and you host events, and it's kind of it's a sort of cushy gig that the president usually gives to people that he likes or that he owes a favor or something like that. It does sound like Don Jr. and Kimberly, they've been dating for years. It sounds like maybe they're not dating anymore, so maybe that was a bit of a parting gift by Trump. But as far as I know, there's no ill will there or anything else. I think she'll do just a fine job. Bernardo says, and by the way, I've been to some events that she has hosted. She does a lot of fundraisers and parties and all sorts of things, and she's a wonderful, wonderful, gracious, welcoming host. And again, that's kind of what the gig is as ambassador. So I think she'll do a nice job. And Kimberly, if you'd like me to come visit Greece and chill, that would be cool too. Bernardo says, we all know how much Bill Maher means to you, and it seems like you made it a point to visit him every time you head back to Cali. What are the chances of him coming to visit you in your home in Miami? It would make for a wonderful in-person interview. Yes, 100%. We discussed it in the car the other day when we were going to the Laker game. He's going to do it when he gets to Miami. He doesn't like to travel that much. He really doesn't. And I don't know that he fully has said this publicly, but he just taped what he is saying is his last HBO special. He taped it last week. I think he said in Milwaukee, if I'm not mistaken, and it's going to air the first week in January on HBO. And he's saying that it's going to be his last HBO special. He wants to go out on top. I fully respect that. So we talked a little bit about, sort of the arc of a career and legacy and all of those things. And it is kind of fun that we've become good friends. If you would have said to me in 1999, when I was a year into doing stand-up and he still had Politically Incorrect, which was on ABC at the time, it was way before Real Time or any of that stuff. That was the show I wanted to be on because it was political and it was with other comics. And like if you would have told me, 25 years from now, you're going to be sitting courtside with Bill, kind of as equals, it's like, I would have gone, that's pretty cool. So life has a way. If you aim for something, life has a way. Mitchell says, how absurd is it that these nut jobs like Taylor Lorenz can celebrate the death of a CEO at a healthcare company implementing the failed policies that make up Obamacare while simultaneously placing one of its primary authors, Obama, on a pedestal as an example of human greatness? I think this might exemplify the problem. They are always focused on a symptom and never addressing the root cause. That's such an absolutely great point. If your argument right now is that healthcare in this country sucks, and you certainly can make that argument, well, then you might want to look at Obamacare. And that was the argument The argument for the people that were against Obamacare usually was not, oh, we don't want health care for everyone. It was that we are creating a giant government boondoggle where people will not get the best service. I often, when healthcare comes up, I often mention a friend of mine in Dallas who's a doctor, and I just yesterday texted him because we're having our big Rubin Report holiday party this Saturday night. We got a ton of people coming, and I wanted him and his wife to come. And he basically said he is so busy this year, as it always happens at the end of the year, because everyone tried to come to the doctor at the end and just because they're maxing out their amount of time they can go to the doctor. And he basically said, I'm buried in paperwork and that's it. There's just no way I can go. That's it, even though it's a weekend. I cannot do it this time of year. So we created a system where we know our health care is not great. So you're so right. So you have somebody that's really pissed at the CEO of a healthcare company. Again, you can't just execute somebody on the street. You just don't do that, okay? I don't want to be controversial, but don't do that. Don't just kill people because you don't like the way they do business. But you're right. That's sort of the symptom where the actual thing that we should be diagnosing is the system that allows for that sort of thing. And yes, you might want to then look at Obama when it comes to something like that. Hopefully Trump will fix some of this stuff. And it doesn't need to be a giant government program. We need more competition, right? Competition is what lowers costs for drugs, for doctors, and everything else, instead of just leaving this giant model, everyone has health care. And it's like, okay, well, there's no competition in the system anymore. Doctors are less inclined to work longer or do more, et cetera, et cetera. You get it. Supply and demand. Let's talk about 1775 coffee for a minute, and we'll have more on the other side. Guys, Peaberry coffee isn't your average bean. It's coffee's best kept secret. Only 5% of coffee beans grow as peaberries, making them denser, more flavorful, and packed with bold energy to kickstart your mornings. This isn't just coffee, it's a richer, more powerful brew. 1775 Peaberry coffee is for those who refuse to compromise. Each bean is hand-picked at high altitudes for that smooth, powerful kick you need to fuel your day. No corporate crap, no woke nonsense, just the best coffee you'll ever taste. And it's not just about the coffee, it's about what it stands for, whether it's Peaberry, dark or medium roast, or the new mushroom blend. 1775 coffee is about quality, freedom, and living with purpose. Head on over to 1775coffee.com, grab your Peaberry, and join the coffee revolution. Use code Rubin to save 15%. Your mornings deserve better. Brew Rebellion. All right, Chipster says, is there a way for us to wish Dennis Prager a speedy recovery? Could you guys jump on PragerU website right now and see if do they have a submit button or anything to send Dennis a message? When I saw him in the hospital a couple days ago, and again, I don't want to get into any of the specifics that are not public, but I can tell you he needs your prayers right now. Dennis has loomed so large in my life, and he's such a wonderful human being, and it's not just our lives, it's just literally millions of people all over the world, and he took quite a bad spill about a month ago. And is dealing with a very, very long recovery. It was a very bipolar trip that I took to LA because I saw Dennis, and then I was at the Laker game with Bill. I was like, this is just such a weird emotional roller coaster, but that's not important. Dennis is an absolutely incredible human being. And he needs some prayers right now. Do you see anything on the PragerU site? So I don't see anything on the PragerU site now. I will tell you that when I was there were stacks and stacks of handwritten letters. So hang tight. I'll find out if we can get an address that you can send something to, or at least an email or something. But things were getting through to him. Rebecca says, what are your thoughts on Pete Hegseth potentially being our new Secretary of Defense? Have you ever met him in person? Yeah, I've met him probably a dozen or 24 times. If you saw yesterday's show, it was like a 3-second cold open from about 2 months ago when I was on Gutfeld, where Hegseth says, I defer the rest of my time to Dave Rubin. He is a funny, nice guy. I saw him, I mentioned this on the show yesterday because there's these rumors that he's somehow an alcoholic or something like that. I have never seen him drunk. I've never even seen the guy having a drink. As a matter of fact, 10 of his co-hosts on Fox have all said they've never seen him show up to work drunk or anything like that. But when I saw him, this is maybe 2 months ago, it was after doing Gutfeld. I went to Del Frisco's, which is right next door, steak joint, and I was with some friends, but I saw him sitting at the bar, and I went over to say hi. As I mentioned yesterday, I had my tequila in hand, and I said, Pete, let me get you a drink. And he's like, oh, I'm not drinking tonight. And he was just eating his steak and enjoying himself. How many alcoholics sit at a bar without drinking? Like, it's just everything that they throw at these people is insane. And also, we are not all guilty. If and this is nonsensical to even say, but let's say he drank a little too much 10 years ago. Let's say he did. Does that mean he can't be defense secretary? And I'm not accusing him of that. It's just absurd. The reason they're going after him the way they are is that they know that he is probably the biggest threat to the machine, that he will go in there and get wokeness out of the military and clean up the nonsense, and the amount of DEI hiring that has infected our military, it needs to go. He's committed to doing it. And not only does he have a great pedigree and resume militarily, but he's a television host. He knows how to get up there and fight the right fights and communicate properly. So he's what you would say in basketball, he's a triple threat. Like, he can do all of the stuff that you need him to do. And that's why they don't like him. But I have never had anything remotely close to a bad experience. As a matter of fact, a couple days ago, I was at the Fox Patriot Awards in New York, and he's normally the host. He's hosted it for, I think this was the 7th or 8th one. I think he's hosted all of them. He did not host this one because of the nomination. So Sean Hannity did. But in all of the other ones I've been to, he's an extraordinarily good host too. Like, he's kind and funny and gracious, and yeah, I have just nothing bad to say about the guy. Meg says, we all know how much you love steaks and things of that nature. Outside of those, what is your favorite cuisine around the world? Yeah, I mean, we do eat a lot of steak around here. My favorite cuisine, you know, I've really gotten on a sushi kick lately. If you said to me, Dave, you're not having steak tonight, what do you want? It would probably be sushi. Yeah, I've expanded the palate into the sushi. I'm saying sushi. Lil fella, for those people who want to always remove guns out of society, they should have a look at present-day Israel. Guns are everywhere, not just guns, but automatics. Is the murder rate high? Well, interestingly, before October 7th, to get a gun as a private citizen in Israel was extremely, extremely difficult. Now, they have mandatory service there, so virtually everyone in society is trained on how to use a gun, and then they would have soldiers. One of the things that was most amazing, having been to Israel the last couple of years, where I've been a few times, is that years ago, when I went to Israel 10 years ago, 15 years ago, even 20 years ago, you would see soldiers everywhere. There were soldiers on the streets everywhere, right? It was just, you'd see them everywhere. When I was there before October 7th, in May of last year, I guess it was the year before now, boy, time's flown, I was walking through Jerusalem. We put up a video of it with former Ambassador David Friedman, and we were talking about how safe everything had become and that you didn't see soldiers. And he was talking about how, well, there are cameras, there are different detections, they have undercover agents on the streets, there are just different things. People who obviously are not wearing an army fatigues, but are able to neutralize a threat if it exists. Now, that's all to the backdrop of October 7th, where there were unbelievably horrific failures that will be studied for years and years to come, and I still think they're finding out more now. But so it's not that the average citizen has been walking around with a gun. That's just not the case. That has changed a bit since October 7th. They've lessened or they've loosened up some of the gun laws on that front. But yes, I mean, they have the same types of guns that we have. The Uzi was actually invented by a guy named Uzi, who is Israeli. Hethry says, Luigi Mangione, you're talking about the guy who shot the health. No, not Luigi from Super Mario Brothers, the other Luigi. Everyone's thinking it. Luigi's a wealthy young man, highly educated with ties to Honolulu, Hawaii. I'm not a crazy conspiracy theory person. However, lately conspiracy theories are becoming more true. Could this young man perhaps have been MK Ultra'd while he was attending college? Ooh, boy, you want to go down that road. Look, first off, I would say that I would not say an absolute no to anything relative to all of the things we've learned about the government. He has this 200+ page manifesto that was handwritten. He clearly was educated, but educated doesn't mean smart, right? It can actually mean that you're kind of stupid. We know he had this horrific back pain, but I also saw this morning some emails and some threads that he had been posting in about back pain from Reddit, and that he had some surgeries and then wasn't in pain anymore and wasn't on meds or anything else. So it is very, very unclear what was going on psychologically. Is it possible that he was somehow programmed? I mean, for those of you that don't know what MK Ultra is, just Google it, that the government has had programs to really screw with people's brains and affect their behavior. Like, would I put that completely out of the realm of possibility? Probably not. But it probably also isn't what happened here. I think what you really happened here was some overeducated kid who did have some health problems, who had went to Penn, learned all of the wrong things, come to the wrong conclusions about how society works and all those things, did something horrific. I think that's probably, usually the simplest explanation is the correct one. All right, we got one more. Tom says, Dave, let's get the Rubin Report cruise going in 2026. What say you? When's the next meetup anyway? So Tom, I remember you, Tom. You are a fine man. You brought me a delicious bottle of like 10-year aged añejo. I'm usually a reposado guy, but you bought me a spectacular, spectacular bottle when we did our last meetup in Miami, and I appreciate that. And I know you run some cruises. I would love to do a cruise thing. We're having our year-end meetings next week with, and we all want to paint a picture of what we want to do in 2025, and I want everybody on the team to come with me, to come to me with different ideas. We will discuss the cruise. Could I be trapped on a boat with people who like me? Sounds a little scary, actually. For some reason, being on a boat with people who don't like me sounds less scary. I don't know. Guys, there's no post-game show today because I'm on John Bachman on Newsmax in just a second, so I apologize for that. I thank you for your support as always, and we will be live at 11 a.m. tomorrow with the Willy Wonka of politics, Michael Malice, and the one of the great actual journalists of our time and a good friend of mine, Andy No. Thanks for watching, everybody. See you tomorrow.
We all need to feel joy now during this time of the season, during this time. So anyway, okay, now I'll start. You're all reading into that.